to start off, I'm going to go with the individuals, and we're going to talk a little bit about what each of you has been doing in this space to really ramp up student experience, connection with community, and the importance of developing workforce as we grow as a state. So let's just go back and start with Liz. Tell us about what's happening with apprenticeships and the importance of trades in Montana as we're going forward.
So apprenticeships are really exploding right now. In terms of being a training program, it probably is one of the ones that people connect best with because they're able to both do related instruction and on-the-job training at the same time. An employer who chooses to be a program sponsor really is investing in his apprentice. And he or she basically are looking for somebody who's a long-term employee. You know, they are not whipping around trying to recruit and interview and, you know, go through that entire process. So they want to pick somebody that they can invest time and talent on. And they do the mentorship and they do the hip-to-hip training, that on-the-job training component, but the apprentice takes on related instruction on their own after hours, and so they have an investment in it as well. The employer agrees to wage progression, provided everybody keeps their side of the bargain. They end up with somebody who is well-trained, has a national credential to point to that is transferable, which is great because you never know where life will take you. And if for some reasons you have to move from Billings or out of Montana, basically what you're doing is holding on to something that'll be recognized and pay you well wherever you land.
Mm-hmm. And I noticed yesterday on that topic, the governor signed a bill that supported workforce training.
Yes.
It's a House bill that I think employers can get tax credits for investing in their employers.
50% tax credits. Yep. And
so that,
today in Missoula. And so with the new fiscal year coming up July 1st, I assume that that's when it'll start, and you'll have years lining up to be able to sign up for that tax credit against their apprentices.
Mm-hmm. And it's another good tool in the toolbox that the employers have in this workforce development / education arena, right? That
Absolutely.
I think is, so that's a good thing.
Apprenticeship is also very flexible for the industry it serves. And for Josh, one of the industries that we're looking at now is IT. But healthcare has been a great industry employer. St. John's United has put in time and effort to develop a apprenticeship program. And I think Vicki might be able to talk about it with the students that go to City College, but Miles Community College also participates in that. And they train up CNAs to LPNs or RNs. So it's a great program to point to.
Great, thanks. And in the chat, Marcel has posted a link to the bill that was signed that lines out the details. So if anybody's interested, you can open that up, share it with employers or others that gives the full details. So
yeah, we'll probably send it out to all of our program sponsors in our areas so that they can take a look at it. We also ask them to look at the Incumbent Worker Training Program, which is a great partner, also a DLI program.
Perfect. Thank you. As well as apprenticeships, it's important, I think, that people understand about why internship programs are important. So, Jamie, you want to talk a little bit about that, about your experience with internship programs and the benefits to both students and employers?
Sure. Yeah, so internship programs are super important to not only the interns who are applying, but also the employers who are providing those. It not only allows you to build your resume, but you get to expand, your network. You get to, develop any career choices that you're making, whether that's you're continuing on the present path that you are on, or maybe you want to switch paths. So whether you're exploring different areas in the industry that you're in. It also allows you to, gather a good network of other professionals within that industry. For the employer side, it allows the employers to invest their time, resources, and just overall character building and career building on a group of individuals who they want to succeed and follow in their path. So it allows that to happen for both sides. It allows great opportunity, opens a lot of doors, and is, like I said, a really good resume builder to, that you've had an internship with, not only one or maybe multiple employers, but that is something that a lot of industries are now going to, is to provide an internship before, you actually do graduate. So a great way to stepping stone into the door.
That's right. And you were an MSUB grad, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And did you take advantage of that when you were a student?
Yeah, when I was a student, I went through several of the vetting process, a lot more applicants, and go through. And once I did my internship, I got my full-time hire 4 months before I even graduated college. So it was a great way to know what's going to happen before I graduate and then have to plan for it. So.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, it fits in with this discussion. We talk a lot about talent attraction, and I think there are really good students who are here. If you can keep them here to really work, to show them that there's great jobs here and all that kind of stuff. Jamie's a perfect example. Get them an internship, show them that there's a potential here, and after that, the sky's the limit. So congratulations, Jamie. I know you've been doing some great things there, and you've really taken on some leadership roles with Whipley. So well done. Well done. Yeah. Katie, you want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing with, high school level programs and how those work that gear the students up so they're ready to take that next step, whether it's higher education or the career field?
Definitely. Yeah, I think, you just touched on the idea of talent attraction, and I think that's, a big piece of the puzzle with, how I get to be so lucky. I often consider myself kind of one of the luckiest teachers in Billings because my classroom gets to extend all the way into the Billings community with my classroom programs. And if you're not familiar, our med-career students, it's a semester-long program, and we have 2 sections of that every semester of about 20 kids in each section, so we can take about 40 kids a semester. And we send them all over the city. So they're, getting to really explore all of our healthcare options, from veterinary science and that end of it to the speech pathologies to in the emergency department and the NICU. We're with Riverstone and Billings Clinic and St. B's and Big Sky. I'll leave out partners if I tried to name them all, but it's amazing how many, partners they get to see on that job shadowing end. And what I want to emphasize, I think, is that it's not just job shadowing. For our kids to get to go into these facilities and really just see the modeling of the soft skills and the professional skills, I think that's going to make them better hires and better employees because they're really getting a feel for what does that level of professionalism look like in these industries. They're getting to explore the personality traits and really see what fits. And so, sometimes I teach only seniors, and so they're frustrated by the end because they think that they knew what they wanted to do. And they're really starting to kind of see that it's different. And I think one of the other cool things is high school kids, they want to leave Billings, right? And, I get them when they first come in and I'm going out of state, I'm doing this. And then they see what our community has to offer. And it's that talent attraction piece. They see that not only are we the hospital corridor and there's so many medical facilities, that we have awesome colleges and the 3 different programs that they can get into here. But they see that our community wants to invest in our students. And I think that has a big return on investment of them feeling valued of the mentorship that they get and the way that people take an interest in wanting to help develop and mentor them. Like I said, the number of partners that we have between the colleges and the hospitals and the fire department and Big Sky EMS, it's it's incredible. I don't know I work a lot with other health science teachers across the state, and nobody has that. And so I think the kids see what a big deal that is and how many opportunities are made available. And so just really grateful, and then that's gotten to be able to carry over. I took over the state director duties for our HOSA Future Health Professionals this year and trying to help expand that. But it was one of the big reasons why we wanted to partner with, a lot of people on this call to bring our HOSA conference here. And obviously we had to go virtual this year, but Billings invests in students, and I think it's a really special thing, and I want to be able to share that with this other role that I'm able to do. So just lucky.
Yeah, well done. Well, and it's interesting because I think a lot of times I try to explain it to people in other communities that Billings has kind of it's built an ecosystem that people, different sectors support students, and it's a web of education, workforce, industry that works together, and it's been really, I think, beneficial, and that is evidenced in what happens in the HOSA program. So, and it also, I think the workforce development / education bridge means that we have to have some sort of an entrepreneurial mindset. And I'll just turn that over to Josh to talk a little bit about how he's approached that and how he sees the value of that mindset going forward, and a little bit about Code School, right?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to teach a class in partnership with BSED and Rock 31 for the first 3 months of this year, which was really fun. I learned a lot. I think the students learned a lot. But I think I'm kind of at an interesting spot here because I'm not personally in education. I'm definitely in the business side. Mm-hmm. And I'm also not in the medical industry. So I'm I sort of see Billings from a different side. It is a much less developed in my in the software space as opposed to the healthcare side. And so I think from the way that I see development in my sector and in entrepreneurship is by helping people, specifically young people, get interested in entrepreneurship and get interested in the world of software, because we can't walk up and down a street here and see tech companies like you can in other cities, and other states, obviously. But that's something that I think that there's a lot of growth opportunity in Billings for that. But it takes people to encourage other potential entrepreneurs and other people who are interested in developing software skills, maybe, in order to achieve that level of growth that I think we can see here. And so, yeah, I did the Code School, and then also we have a small entrepreneur community that's growing here in Billings that we meet every Friday, which is super awesome because that's something that it's that peer-to-peer sort of education that you learn about other people's experiences in the trenches of starting a company and growing a tech company. So that's been super, super valuable for me. And we meet every Friday.
So what does that group, if that group were to be polled and asked about what a couple different things that the community could do to help, encourage more entrepreneurship and connection with students, and would it be mentorships, or what would be the secret sauce that you would need to sprinkle in with what you're doing to help make it better?
With with
your entrepreneurship idea?
Yeah, to sprinkle it in and get more involvement, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's about encouragement. I think we spend a lot of we expend a lot of effort getting people set up to be successful in their chosen industry, and which is absolutely what we should do. And we should also encourage them to think about whatever that idea that they had, and maybe that they should pursue that on the side. Of course, don't quit your day job. Yeah. But I mean, we had some interesting ideas just on the call. People have these really interesting ideas. Hey, maybe you should think about that. Maybe you should think about pursuing that, and maybe you should go dive into the business side and find somebody who can mentor you to learn about maybe what is involved in starting a business or a startup, especially if you need funding and things like that, and what technical
Right.
expertise do you need?
That's perfect. Great example. Thanks for that insight. And, one of the things when you talk about, connections, mentorships, direct contact, that's one of the things that has been happening out at City College for a long time. And Vicki, I'd like to have you talk about, it's a great success story out there, but I think there's a lot of potential too. Could you talk a little bit about what your partnerships are looking like and the kind of, what's going on with this next generation of workers that we see coming?
Thank you. One of the biggest things about City College is we wouldn't be where we are without the partnerships with our community members. We have, just to give you just a little bit of a background, all of our programs have advisory committees that are made up of industry professionals who give us advice on what the curriculum should look like, what kind of participation they're expecting from our students, what kinds of, even as internship spots or guest speakers. And much like what Jamie was talking about with being hired even before graduating, that happens to a lot of our students because we have not only healthcare professions, but a lot of the trades. I think we have to really work with our partners to not steal our students away before they graduate, because one of the things that's really important to us is completion. And so, if we're having employers steal our welding students away before they graduate, then that impacts us. But we love that they have jobs before they even graduate. One of the things that, having worked at, this is the third 2-year college that I've worked at, and one of the things that I have noticed over the years is the need to change the nature of partnerships, especially in the healthcare fields. And one of the things that we've done recently that we're calling the One MSU Network, and we're working with Great Falls College and Gallatin College to offer respiratory therapy through Great Falls College, but at both Bozeman and at Billings, so that we can expand what students are able to take without having to expend resources that we don't necessarily have. So the way this really kind of came about was Great Falls College put their respiratory therapy program on moratorium just before COVID hit. And of course, I got an email from Billings Clinic almost immediately after that happened saying, are you going to do a respiratory therapy program? And, having overseen a respiratory therapy program in the past, I knew how expensive that was going to be. I mean, a lot of folks don't know. I mean, those programs with equipment, faculty, all kinds of things, we're looking at $500,000 just to start a program. So I remember Susan Wolf, who's the dean at Great Falls College, kind of got wind of this discussion I was having with Billings Clinic. And I was sitting in my driveway in my car having a conversation with her about what we might do. And what we decided was, well, maybe we can partner. They can bring their program off of moratorium, and we can follow a model like we already do with surgical technology, where Great Falls offers the didactic portion, the lecture portion via video, or, they can take it synchronously or asynchronously. And all of that is offered online, but the students can stay in their communities and do their clinical rotations. So we talked about that, talked with the faculty member at Great Falls College, and decided that this was something that we could do. Bozeman had a need for this as well, so we partnered with Gallatin College. And the great thing about this is not only do we get to offer our students another healthcare program wherever they might be, but we also get to partner differently with our community partners. So one of the things that was really crucial to this is we needed to hire a clinical coordinator, which is about $100,000 with benefits and salary. And what we asked the partners to do is chip in money for that first year until we had enough students to be a self-supporting program. And they stepped up. We have partners with SCL, with Billings Clinic, Benefice in Great Falls, and they stepped up and said, yes, we will be a partner with this, and we will contribute. And I'm happy to see that, because I think as we as higher ed institutions rely much more on enrollment to bring tuition and fees, that partnership and that monetary contribution is more and more important to us being able to offer those programs to students, to work with Katie students, to bring them over and offer them, because we have a lot of healthcare students who come in saying, I want to be a nurse. Well, not everybody can be a nurse. And so what's great about that is we can say, well, not only do we have paramedic and we have medical coding and we have all of these things, but we can also offer you surge tech. We can also offer you respiratory therapy. We're looking at sonography now using the same model, so that the didactic is offered online and students can do their clinicals wherever they are, so that we can also serve Eastern Montana, because that has been identified very much as a need to get students to work in those very rural areas in those healthcare facilities.
Yeah, and you had an interesting sort of a notion there that when you're opening up those sort of arenas to students. So let's think about Gen Z for a second, right? So Gen Z is going to be in the higher education workforce very soon, and they're a different sort of, they think more responsibly. They're able to differentiate things more rapidly. They're like, trying to think, they're spendthrifts, right? They really want to make sure they're getting the most for their money. These are all these data. So is higher education going to be working on kind of your model of reassessing your strategies a little bit, so you can get students a little bit in the door, out the door quicker? I mean, it's tough because you got certain requirements, but man, I could see almost, taking ramping up the dual credit sort of model that Katie works on and tying into something that Josh is talking about, of being entrepreneurial mindset, to get them out the door quicker. I mean, is that something that's been discussed?
Absolutely, because with dual credit, we've done a lot in the last couple of years to ramp up our offerings in dual credit, really focusing on CTE. So not only students can get their writing, their communications, their math requirement out of the way while they're in high school, but also offering more CTE classes like what Katie and Dr. Hahn do at the Career Center, so that students can kind of get their feet wet, so that they know, okay, maybe I wanted to do nursing, but I've also been exposed to EMT, and that looks really great to me. Or I've been exposed, or maybe I don't like blood, but I want to be in healthcare. Well, maybe medical coding or health administration might be something that they can do. So I think the partnership, especially that we have with the Career Center, has been so productive, not just in working with students, but, the fact that I can sit down with Katie and say, well, what do we need to be doing to get your students over here? And she's been great. And we've partnered on HOSA, and that has been such a rewarding partnership. And we're hoping to have that conference here next year, just to, showcase our facilities, but also, show students what's possible. And show them that here's the pathway, here's what you need to do, here are the classes to take, so you're not wasting time. And so you're getting into college quicker and getting out quicker too. So you don't have to spend all that time that I think a lot of us probably did in college, where we were kind of playing around with what we wanted to do. And, they don't have to do that.
Right. And I think it's one of those things where if we understand where everybody's at, which is the benefit of this sort of panelist discussion, is that if someone comes to you and says, man, I really wanted to do this, but it's not, I'm not feeling it, I really don't want to go, then you go like, okay, well, do you think about apprenticeships? Do you think about other sorts of opportunities? Because I think students will find those and adapt accordingly. So this is going to be a question for the group, and anybody can answer. So, one of the things that we've talked about are all these really cool things. And if we are going to be, all of us are going to be better off in Billings, it's seems to me it's a journey that requires sort of, constant vigilance and the ability to adjust. We've done some good things, but what can we all do to do a better job when it comes to connecting workforce with students, especially in the education setting of all levels? And I'll just open it to anybody who wants to respond. If you don't respond, I'll pick on you. Go, Liz.
I'll jump in. One of the things that we are trying to do is look for those, the EDI, the equity, diversity, inclusion formula that brings more people in to a training process that they might not have been as familiar with. One of our successes right now that we are watching closely is the Little Bighorn College partnership with MSU Northern to train plumbers and electricians in Billings. And I'll tell you that they are going after it. And it represents a sustainable economy that's attached to Billings, but one that's important in Billings as well. So that's just one example of what we were looking at, but an important partner in that is the job service, who has funding that allows some folks who can't afford training to maybe apply to come into that training process. And I'll tell you what, we refer and partner up with job service all over our area in Eastern Montana.
Mm-hmm. That's a good example. Josh, what do you think we could do better at, both as a community or leaders in the community?
Well, from my perspective, I think we can do more I think we're very utilitarian, and I think that we could do more to help encourage people to pursue those ideas, connect the business people to the students. And I think that the business people could do better at interacting with students or potential employees who show interest in maybe starting their own venture. And I think that it's really easy it's certainly running a business, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of time, and it's really easy to just say, this is what I'm doing. But that's not necessarily super helpful for the community and for the young people in the community who might want to do that on their own. And so I think it takes initiative on both sides, finding the student who has the initiative and interest to maybe pursue entrepreneurship in their future, and then finding the business people and encouraging them to take the initiative to help those people who might be interested in that, taking them under their wing and kind of showing them these are the trials and tribulations that I've gone through, and let me impart some wisdom to you.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a brilliant idea. And Jamie's been involved in a couple of sort of mentorship programs that would maybe tie into that. Maybe Big Sky EDA. This is something for Marcel and Melanie maybe to think about. Maybe we could take this conversation to a different level and think about exposing students to those ideas or encouraging them to take that next step. I don't know, Jamie, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a good play right into what I was going to say. Mine is to obviously both sides, get involved and keep staying involved in everything. I know, the schools are having a tough time with, people going to college or going to trade schools and where their options are. And, employers are where the students that need jobs or internships or, anything like that. So keep getting involved. And then obviously with how things are changing, continue to stay flexible. I think we'll all be challenged with the flexibility that the new workforce is going to continue to want, and they are getting right now. And then obviously we have to make sure that we're abiding by, what they are transitioning in and what we're used to. So it's not all 8 to 5 anymore, or those things. So I think that that's going to be something that we will want to work together with. Just in our profession, that's been something that a lot of people have stayed. They don't get the flexibility that they would elsewhere. So that's one thing that they really enjoy, is they can work when they kind of are able to, especially with, whether they have kids at home or sick family members, whatever it may be, they're able to do their job with no questions asked. And as long as they're doing their job, everyone's happy. So,
Right.
Yeah, I would just say this, stay involved and, get involved, and then that flexibility piece.
Good suggestions. Katie, Vicky, any ideas on that? What could we do better?
Yeah, I'd love to kind of echo some of that. I just wish, like I said, I feel so lucky because my kids get that, and I see them really grow through the mentorship that they're able to get from people at the colleges and at the healthcare facilities and the fire department and the Bioscience Alliance, all these people that really model these things for them, in that networking piece. Kids need coaching. They just don't really know what it takes to be successful in that field, how starting here will lead you to here, right? They think it's like this, you start in your dream job, right? And like, how do I get from here and get some experience, and I like or don't like this, and then you meet somebody who, oh, you like this, how about you shadow? It's all about networking and connections, and kids don't understand that. And I think part of that is, I think as employers understanding that our students today, I don't know how to explain it, they're very socially anxious. They don't connect in the same way that we as adults connect on face-to-face and telephones, and so they don't really understand that networking piece. And one of the things Marcel's really done for my class, and Karen when she was working here, is we started doing a networking thing. They came into my class and they taught students how to network and how to do that. And then we were doing stuff with Next Gen with mocktail nights. And COVID kind of started hampering on that, but I saw that starting to grow, of being able to connect, not just healthcare, because again, I've been so lucky and my kids have had that, but how do we bring that into other industries where other kids get to enjoy, the benefits that my students have. And I've just found that coaching and that mentoring helps with that anxiety and builds that confidence. And again, it shows that investment of and shows them what Billings has to offer and why they want to be here. It all ties into that talent attraction and helping students and our economy together. And my other piece would just be, again, they're non-traditional and they're looking for other ways. And so I just applaud everyone that's been getting creative with the college and the different programs of speeding things up and getting kids through, and the stuff that the apprenticeship programs are doing. What can we give credit to kids for while they're in high school or in college, that let's not redo the same thing. Can we, dual purpose some things and get them on their path sooner? Because I think that's what this generation of worker is looking for. So just kind of, yeah.
I think also changing the conversation about what higher education actually is or could be. I think, especially since I've been in Montana, I have noticed that the conversation is very much still, you have to get a bachelor's degree. You have to get a bachelor's degree. And I think we really need to change that conversation, because college is a 2-year college. College, it can be an apprenticeship program. College can be a lot of things. And I think switching that conversation to, hey, it's okay if you want to be a plumber. We need plumbers. It's okay if you want to be an HVAC technician. We really need those. Changing that conversation and saying, college can mean a lot of things, and it's okay if you're only going to get a certificate. We have students who, a certificate's about all they can handle because of a variety of reasons. But what's nice about that is they can go out and they can make a good living with that 1-year certificate. So I think really taking a look at what is it that we really want out of our workers, and, having that conversation with students, kind of like what Katie was saying. I think also having a conversation with our young people about what kinds of skills are going to be needed in those positions. I hear a lot from our partners about soft skills, and we do the best we can with trying to teach them how to be on time, or how to fill out a timesheet, or getting things done on time. But a lot of that also comes from the family dynamic. What is important in the family dynamic? What is important as a K through 12 student? And really, that I really do think that takes everybody talking to potential students about what are those expectations, because we do have a changing set of students, and they're not coming with some of those skills. And so understanding that, if I speak to you differently, it's not because I'm, disrespecting you or something like that. It's because this is the way I speak. And, how is it that you speak, and learning how to have that kind of communication rather than just being offended immediately because of whatever reason. But I would really go back to changing that conversation about what education is after high school.
Well, I think you hit on something there, that the reason I asked everybody about their job they had in high school was to point out that those valuable conversations can take place in the workplace as students are working. So the census data show that there are probably about 4,000 people in Yellowstone County between the ages of 16 and 19 who are already working. So these are the people who are, doing a whole bunch of variety of things at the hardware store, or making, your hamburgers, or working at Albertsons or whatever. They're doing all kinds of things. And so the question comes in, what kind of conversations can employers, variety of employers, have with students who are already in the workforce to make them more valuable when they take their next step, whether they're going to an apprenticeship program, going into the military. Say, for example, let's say they're learning, what they need to know if they're going to be joining the Navy, or they're going to be, going to nursing school, or everything else in between, right? So that leads to this question, what are those real life experiences and qualities that youth need to be successful in the workforce as they take their next step? And I'll open this up to anybody.
I can start. I think just for internships, I know we always look at, diversity, like, are you getting out there and trying things, doing things, whether it's in the people business, what are those skills that you're putting on your resume that, you think where it went? I mean, sometimes you're putting the basics, but on the back end, those are good questions. Well, did you think about, how did you do this? Or the questions that are always asked, if you're caught in a tough situation, how do you handle that? Or, those things that not necessarily are on the resume, but putting yourself in those jobs that might not, or might be every day, or the rest of your career, give you a good diversity just as a person. So it allows you to handle situations that, help you develop and help you be a person and discuss it with someone else. So
I think to always be thinking about what your actions might result in, because I see a lot of students who, and especially in our healthcare professions programs, who, didn't necessarily make the best choices as young people, and they come back and they expect that is not going to be taken into consideration. And, for a lot of clinical sites, if you have a DUI, you're not getting into a clinical. And so, there's always be thinking ahead about what that Facebook post is going to result in. And that's hard for young people to do. But I think more and more, that's something to think about what your actions today might result in down the road, because, people like to live online, and that doesn't go away. And I don't think a lot of our young people understand that employers look at those things. They research your online history. They find those things. And so, always be thinking about, how could this affect me down the road?
Okay, good point. Liz, what were you going to say?
I was going to say one example that just happened this week was a young man who had applied for an apprenticeship job, and went through it, found out he was not selected, called me back and said, what else can I do? And I really like that, because it offers an opening that clearly he's motivated. And he said, I don't have probably the strongest math background. And so we had already made a connection with the adult education program for Billings Public Schools. And after a conversation that Glenn and I had with him, he indicated that he would be very interested in turning some of their faculty towards this need. And so I had this young man call him and connect with him and told him that we had already had a preliminary conversation. It turned out he called me right back and he said, hey, it looks like I'm going to be able to take some courses so that I'll be a stronger applicant for the next time. What else can I do? I just love that energy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good when they can kind of figure that out and go the, whatever, take the next direction, or what would I do if I can't make it here? What do I do? Again, I think that there's something inside that I see in doing research and looking at the Gen Z is they're entrepreneurial in their mindset. So the other day I was at a coffee shop, and oftentimes you see, they've got their phones and they're talking about this and that, but they were looking at investment opportunities. So it's not all GameStop and it's not all Dogecoin. It's a bunch of other sort of things, right? So if they're making those decisions, they're understanding how the technology can be used to their advantage. And I think they need encouragement in different arenas, both in their jobs that they're having now, even if it's a part-time job somewhere, to use that sort of stuff to get them to the next level. I think that's what, like, one of the things that Josh is talking about. It's just a matter of making those connections. So, any other thoughts on that until we go to the next one?
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add an initiative. I think that in a lot of cases, in the software space specifically, a lot of times it's not enough to come and say, I graduated from this code school, or I have this certificate, or I have this, or I have that. Employers want to see, well, what have you done? What have you built? We're not in the, it's not like medicine. I would not encourage any medical students to be treating injuries on the side. But in the software space, you can build things at home by yourself. It's low barrier to entry. You need a computer. You don't need a welder or anything like that. You can make some really cool things, but it takes dedication and initiative, and you can add those things to your resume. And that makes a big difference between a candidate who has nothing but school experience, or somebody who has an internship. That's a similar sort of something that you can add on your resume, but also, oh yeah, and I also built this really cool thing over here and I can demo it for you.
Right. Or demonstrate how they failed and come back from it, So we have a question here from the from Aaron Pratt in the group, and I would encourage people to just throw their questions in as they come up. And this is Aaron says, I was listening to a tech executive at Slack who indicated they're looking for candidates who have demonstrated resiliency, basically overcoming challenges and adversity over GPA and specific experience. This is kind of what Josh is talking about. Do you believe resiliency is being taught or can be taught? And then I have a follow-up to that question. I'll let anybody on the panel go from there. Let's start with you, Katie, since you deal with a lot of young people.
$1 million question, right?
I know.
I do think it can be taught, and I think it comes back to that thing that I keep saying, mentorship. For a lot of our students, sometimes some of those students who struggle with some of those issues, not all of them, but some of them haven't seen, a stable adult and some of those things, and some of them have, but just kind of modeling that consistency and modeling how to overcome things, and I think that comes from relationships. And I think that as educators, one of the things that we take pride in at the Career Center is we say rigor, relevance, and relationships. Those are our 3 R's, and I think that building those things, I think, is an important part of an educator or a mentor. And the more adults that we can get on board with working with kids and helping model that and helping them work through those things, because sometimes I just sound like a mom to them and they hear it from somebody else and it gets through, so like the more people reinforcing those, I think the better off we're going to be helping those kids through those hurdles.
Good insights. Anybody else?
I think if we don't offer them that, single path of yes or no, and that's what, in my career, that's what I've always done, is Don't ask people a yes or no question. Ask them a how
Mhm.
question. Because if we don't know, it's on us, not on them. And so it opens up a whole lot of other pathways that they
Yep.
have to choose from.
Good point, Liz. Very good point.
Well, and I think with, at least at the college level, one of the things that we do a lot is, go back and have conversations with students about, why didn't that work? And what do you think were the problems with that? It's kind of an extreme example, but with our student complaint process, it's a process, and they have to go through and they have to talk about what is their issue. What do they think a good resolution to that issue might be? And they have to talk to a number of people in that process to figure out what a good resolution might be. So that's we hope it doesn't get to that point, but I think Liz's point about not giving them the yes or no, but also if we don't know the answer, or they've gone to an office. I used to do this with my students all the time, is if you got a yes or no answer, what question did you ask, and was it the right question? So talking with them about what the right questions, if you go to the financial aid office and say, I need more money, and they say, well, no, you're not getting any more money, is that the right way to ask the question? Probably not. It's like, well, could I have more money I have this emergency? And usually there's money available. So I think it's also up to us to have those conversations with students about how to ask the question, how to find the information, and not just to say, well, I don't know, you tell me what the answer is. Because we hear that a lot, is they just want the answer from us, and they want it to be one right answer. And, having trained students to do master's theses and dissertations, there's no right answer. There's just the answer you've decided is the one you're going to support. And that was always very frustrating for my students because they wanted the right answer.
Right, forgetting that the joy is in the journey sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So here's another question for the group from Kevin Scharf. Does anyone on the panel know of any recent surveys that asked Montanans in their 20s and 30s what specifically they care about the most when searching for a city to live in and a company to work for? One example I hear a lot is, I want to work for a company that embraces a flexible work schedule in a city with lots of nearby outdoor activities. So I would just tell Kevin, well, go to work for Whipley, evidently. Right, Jamie?
I was actually going to respond. Whipley does we have a really great internship program. We have interns across the nation, and usually a 90% higher rate either the first year or pushing to the second year. But we survey hours weekly and ask them all sorts of questions to make sure that we're staying up to, their standards as well as they're staying up to ours. And, that is a question that has come up this last year. And yes, there are some that are in their 20s and 30s, but we do have several that aren't. But it is coming down to the more flexible. That's where we're seeing is the flexibility is huge. And then the next is, what they want to do with that flexibility, whether it is the outdoors, whether it is their family because their children are home. Those are their own reasons, but I would say that the top one is flexibility and wherever they, can afford to live. So what that looks like, they could live, here, but they're working for another office because they really enjoy Billings, and we offer that. So I would say top from what we have seen from our interns is definitely the flexibility.
Yeah. Well, I think that's more universally true. As someone who's not in the 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s anymore, right? So I that's important to people in my arena as well. We want the flexibility so that, and I see more and more people at my age who are trying to reinvent themselves, who have an affinity for something in the technology space, whether it's entrepreneurial mindset, learning how to do something that will make themselves a little more valuable in the next I think 2020 showed that nothing is permanent and nothing is sacred as far as jobs, and people are waking up to that fact, right? So this gets back to kind of what Josh was talking about earlier. People might have a side gig, they want the flexibility to work on it, and I think that's kind of advantageous. So this, as we're going forward in the future, understanding that, I think, is going to be huge, not only for people that are in middle school and high school, but beyond, right? This gets back to the lifelong learner aspect. Any other insights on any of those questions? I'm monitoring.
I think just from also a couple more surveys that we've seen come our way is the high hour requirements that a lot of professions usually see. That's getting decreased quite a bit or spread out. And then obviously on top of that is benefits. So benefits are something else that it might not be a traditional benefit to, do X, but this is something that, the new professionals that are coming into your industry are wanting. So that's something that they're able to do. So we've seen quite a few, whether that's a different type of, time off or, anything from, there's all sorts of things that are getting changed, I guess. And I think we'll continue to, and that's something that will also be what is asked by new employees.
Perfect. Josh.
I was just going to say, this goes into acquiring the best talent too. Just look at all the tech companies in Silicon Valley who want the best of the best. They have the most flexible working hours, the most flexible vacation times, because they know that the more flexibility, the more perks, and the better that they can do there, the better talent that they can attract into their company, because they're all trying to get the same people. So that'll, I think, become more and more important to employers in order to realize the value that those types of things offer to employees, that they're going to have to start offering that kind of stuff in order to acquire the right talent for their company.
Yeah. Good point. So this gets back to kind of the next question about kind of relationships that businesses have with all elements of the community, education, all that kind of stuff. So this gets to expectations. So, over the next couple of months, there's going to be a whole lot of money invested in things like, work, job training, higher education, research funding, healthcare, infrastructure, all this kind of stuff, right? Through this big investment to the economic recovery and all that kind of stuff. But I'm kind of wondering, from your perspective, do you all think, and each of you can comment, but do you think that there's something that needs to take place to ensure we have either newer or better outcomes on the other side of those investments? What should we expect to position ourselves as a workforce development or a strong economy? Are there things that we should expect as far as outcomes? Is it, percentage of people in the workforce? Is it is it based on numbers of new websites built or apps developed or that sort of thing? I mean, what do you think?
And I would say that one of the things that we have a great number showing is our employers who really care about their apprentices. The things that they do to keep them, to paying or reimbursing them for training, providing a safe and healthy workspace. And I'm not just talking about the skilled trades. I'm talking about people who sign up for apprenticeships who are, out in rural areas, but do healthcare and those kinds of things. But I will say that the one thing that I would love to see more of is mentor training. That if people are assigned an apprentice or an intern or somebody, that they understand that responsibility of what they're doing, either short-term or long-term, because our apprenticeships are generally long-term. And there are some who are showcasers. I just visited and registered one this week who, yesterday, who you couldn't ask for a better employer sponsor. He is just dynamite. He does things with School District 2. He sat down and recorded a video that I referred to in the chat with his apprentice. And his poor apprentice just got yanked along and said, "Come on, you going with me?" Done. The truck, came out and said, "Okay, we're ready to do our video." And the poor apprentice is like, "What?"
What?
He did it. He was scared to death, but he did it. And he did a great job. And those are the kinds of things that I think kids need to see, that it's them, it's the mirror of them. Sitting in that place, talking about their work. But not every employer is like that.
Yeah.
And some of them just need a little bit of training or, understanding what the ultimate goal is. And they don't have a Katie Meyer or a Vicky Trier. So
Yeah.
I'd like to see something like that for them.
That's good. Good. Anybody else? Okay. So one of the things I think that's interesting is that, everybody brings their own life experiences. They bring expectations, and qualities to their perspective here. So I want each of you to answer the following: based on your personal experiences, your professional experiences, what are 3 things that businesses, right? Our businesses or community members can do to make a difference for students who are already in the workforce and are getting ready to move into their next level, whether it's education or training or their junior year in school or whatever. What are the 3 things that we could all do to make a difference for those students to take that next big step? So, and then these are things, if you were to give people on the call some advice, what would you tell them to do? What are the 3 things?
So mine are stay open and stay flexible. It's going to be a challenge, but I think that's huge. Again, get involved, and when you are involved, stay involved through, kind of like Liz was saying, stay involved through the whole process and understand what that is and what that means, whether you are the teacher or the teaching. And then 3, I think that a big one is to care. When you care, listen, understand the situation, and not everyone learns the same way. So if and it's okay to tell them. I don't know how many times I've asked the smartest people I know, and they explain it. Can you explain it a different way? I didn't understand that part. So, and they're like, sure, okay, let me try it again. So it's okay to ask to clarify and try it a different way. So caring is a huge help in anyone, whether you are, especially for those who are learning, they really like that you care. So
yeah, that's really good, because one of the things that's funny, it's interesting. I've got a son who's 21 and who's just finishing up at City College. He's in the paramedic program, did fire science. Now he's finishing up paramedic. And I said, tell me about, what you would, tell people looking back in, what makes the difference. And he said, the last thing he said was, act like you care, right? Just care about what the students are doing and how they're doing to get to their next step. And I think that's really insightful. So thanks. Okay, who's next? Who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Okay.
I'd say encourage discovery and initiative, especially in the tech space. And encourage and get kids involved in business and entrepreneurship, because I think that that's something that it's really easy to miss that class or never take it. And also, I think in the tech space, it's really important that young people understand that education never ends. It never, ever ends. And even if you go get a certificate, you should never sit back in your chair and say, I've learned everything I need to know. It never ends, and it will continue the rest of your career.
Well, that's true. I'm sure there's a couple of people on the call or on the presentation or even on the panel that this isn't their job they started out with. It's not mine. I mean, I've been out here at Exxon Mobil for 8 years, and I started out as a newspaper person. So go figure. That's a kind of a goofy line, but it's pretty amazing. So thanks, Josh. Who wants to go next?
I'll go before people start stealing. I'll keep stealing all mine. I think, listening to Jamie go, I think that brought to mind another thing when we talk about, what draws people to want to work somewhere, the flexibility or whatever. I think with our students, one of the things that I find is, and everywhere, we want to feel valued. Your employees want to feel valued and know that they're cared about. And I think especially our young kids and fostering that, they're going to move on, unless they feel that value. And so that's one piece, that caring piece that Jamie was talking about. The other, and I think these all three tie together and also tap into some of the stuff that Josh was saying too, is meet them where they're at. Some students have more workforce skills than others, whether that's hands-on skills or whether it's soft skills, but build the employee you want. In the healthcare industry, we talk a lot about growing your own healthcare professional. Help build that student into the employee you want to have. Don't let those things slide. That's how you get that resiliency, right? Hold them accountable, hold them to that fire, build that employee that you want. And again, that's going to, as hard as it is to be hard on them sometimes, that's how they know they're valued. They know that you're invested in helping them grow. And then that kind of ties to that third piece is help them grow, move them from point A to point B. If they see that this is a stopping point for them and that's not where they see themselves, they're going to leave you. That's part of this Gen Z of moving careers and moving options. And, we see people changing careers late with apprenticeships and going back to school. How can we keep that continuing? Keep them in your pipeline, but move them and help them. And it can be big things, whether it's training and stuff, but sometimes it's confidence. Our kids come in, again, with a lot more anxiety than I think the adult world recognizes that our students have. And that helping build that confidence through experience. And again, investing and showing you care.
That's really good. Thank you so much. I'm writing all these things down. I'm scribbling as fast as I can while I'm soaking all this in. So the next time we do a STEM Yellowstone event or some sort of video, I'm doing all these things because this really cool panel of people told me that they're important. And I'm like, this, it's like in here. Vicki, go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure there's anything else to say after what Katie said, but a couple of the things that I thought of was talk about the reality of the job. What is it, talk to them. And this is part of that caring, is talk to them about, if they want to be a nurse or they want to be a paramedic, what is the reality of that? Because we have a lot of students who come in and they say, this is what I want to be. And I mean, I can relate to that because I wanted to be a radio broadcaster when I was in college and realized that, I really hated that. So, talk to them about the reality of the job, talk to them about what are the steps that they need to take to get where they want to be. And what are the opportunities in either that field or that position? What is it? I think also be realistic about training. We have a lot of folks who have a lot of different obligations outside of work. And that flexibility that we've been talking about a lot today is really, I think, going to come into, it certainly comes into play. Our students, we have a lot of non-traditional age students with a lot of commitments. So what is, be flexible with that, and realistic. And I think be ready to support them. Again, this goes back to, being supportive, being caring, is being flexible about the types of training that are being required. If you can't do it, can you ask somebody to do it? How can you ask them, your employee, to do that training, when they don't have the weekends free? And you may lose an employee because you require that training on the weekend, but yet they have family commitments or personal commitments, whatever that might be. So, and I think that's something that COVID has really taught us, is there's a lot of ways that we can offer a lot of different things. I mean, certainly for higher education, we have learned that, hey, you know what, we can offer A&P labs online, at least for a short period of time, and they can be effective. There are a lot of things that I've had instructors say, oh, we could never do that online, and we've done it. So I think there's lots of ways for folks to get that training and to increase their abilities, but we have to be flexible, and I think employers have to be flexible as well.
Very good insights. I appreciate that, Vicki. All right, Liz, your turn. What's your three things?
One thing that I thanks Dan for letting us take this on. One thing I read about and I wrote it down was reveal relevant opportunities. Because if you don't throw it out there into the mix, you'll never know what people can do when they take it on. And, it might not work out, but I don't think that it's worth holding it in for a specific group or population if by throwing it out there, you widen opportunities for a larger group. And that part of it is so powerful, I think, especially when you believe that they have the opportunity to take it on and the talent to do it as well. One of the things that I'm really pleased about is that we're working with school district to do an official registered pre-apprenticeship program, because those kids are working for winter, and it's the superintendent, it's the principal, Scott Anderson, it's Bo Brunsma, and they are working to get this done this year, this spring semester. And I'm calling them every day saying, oh, where are we with this? How can we help? But they're putting it together because somebody said we're going to do it. And I am very proud of that. And hopefully we'll see it, when graduation happens. But the third thing is what Jamie said, and that is step out and do something, volunteer. I'll tell you, Katie Meyer is not shy about asking for help. And bless her heart, she is one of the hardest workers I have ever known. And she's a teacher, which is teaching her students to be hard workers. And she's fantastic. I'm a big fan of Katie Meyer. So step out and volunteer. And if you can't do it, go to Dan Carter and say, how can I do it? But yeah.
No, I think those are all of those are very good insights, and I've taken these to heart, because these are action steps I think that we can all take as community, as people, to really figure out where, find the need and help fill it, right? And if you, like Liz says, reveal, the relevant opportunities, then you are encouraging that entrepreneurial mindset, as Josh was talking about, to move people forward, giving them the confidence to enter in no matter where they are, and then figure out their pathway, whether it's 2-year, 4-year apprenticeships, certificate programs, or whatever, right? Or, public service. Katie had a background in Peace Corps, and Josh has a background in military. And there's all kinds of opportunities. We just need to make sure that people understand that if you go down one way, it's not the end of things. If it doesn't quite work, and you can change your mind, and it's okay, et cetera, et cetera.